Welcome to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. I'm your host, Ariane Arambiro. Today's guest is Carrie Harris. In a nutshell, she grew up along the U.S.-Mexico border, but married her Alaska college sweetheart 26 years ago and is now happy to call Alaska home. She's a mom to 3 boys and passionate about postpartum and infant feeding support and maternal mental health. Now just short of 50 years old, she's about to graduate from nursing school and get her RN. Please welcome to the podcast, Carrie. OMG, congratulations and welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we go back to a couple years ago. I can't even remember. It was, I think, a year after my daughter was born.
It's like 8 years ago?
She's 8 now, about to be 9 this month, so if you can believe that. But I did a whole postpartum special because I went through that and shared my story, and you were one of the moms that shared your story. So before we kind of get into everything, just, give our listeners a little kind of more in-depth recap of who you are and, tell me a little bit about your story.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So let's see. So I started having kids a little bit later in life. I'm going over what's relevant to what we're here to talk about. Okay.
You're good.
So I had my first kid at 34. And after he was born, it was a wonderful first couple months, and then at about 4 months, I started experiencing what I had no idea what I was experiencing. I thought this was just how motherhood went, but I started experiencing some pretty significant, let's be real, severe postpartum anxiety. I had no idea that's what it was. I would show up at the doctor's every day. I was just obsessed with his weight gain, and breastfeeding was so difficult for me. And, the doctors were just like, maybe you should take a nap, Mom. I was like, okay, sure. My husband's out to sea for 2 months. I'm doing this all by myself. I'm not sure when I was supposed to do that. And then, kept on breeding. Went on to have two more kids. With my second one, I experienced not just postpartum depression and anxiety, but antenatal depression and anxiety as well.
What's that? I haven't heard of that.
That is depression and anxiety you experience while you are pregnant.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. A pretty big risk factor, big marker for postpartum maternal mental health issues. That was real rough. That was an incredibly dark period.
Was that during the whole 9 months? Like when you...
Pretty much.
Really?
Yeah. We moved from Boston up here to Massachusetts, left our whole, support system. Yeah. Moved up here. Husband was gone, about 60% of the time for work. Not his fault. He's a good guy. And, it was pretty rough. Talked to my provider about it. She said, let's try some medication. So I did, and I did not have a good experience on that one particular medication. Did not go well for me. And so I stopped it immediately because even though what I was dealing with on a daily basis was overwhelming to me and overwhelming to my whole family, the side effects from that one medication were too much. Yeah. So I went alternative. I started running. And I started doing some, just trying to do light therapy in the mornings, because of course the darkness up here doesn't help anything. Running was a game changer for me. It really, it saved my life. It helped tremendously. It didn't cure me outright, but it made the days doable. It made life livable. Again, had another baby about 2 years later, and did okay during the pregnancy during that one, but then immediately postpartum just fell flat on my face. And we were kind of ready for this. I'd had a therapist in place, and so we decided to pick back up that running. Decided to do some mindfulness-based meditation stuff and try a different medication, which I was really hesitant to do since my experience on the first one was not good. Yeah. Went for it because it was either that or something real bad was going to happen. I mean, we were at that point. It was a very incredibly dark time. I took that medication and it worked beautifully.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, that was Lexapro. So I like to bring that up because I like to encourage people that if they're struggling in this way and if they've tried one medication and it doesn't work for them, there are options.
Yeah, don't give up.
Don't give up. There are options out there. And that was certainly the case for me. So things got a lot better after that. Still real hard, you know.
Because you had 3 under. I mean, they were all littles.
Yeah, they were under 5.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was a lot.
3 under 5. But you did it.
But we did it.
You know.
Yeah, and then you know, after realizing what it was that I was dealing with, that this wasn't just me being a failure of a human being and a failure as a mom, that this was a medical issue that could be treated, and it wasn't my fault, and that there was hope, and that I could be well again with help and support. Then I kind of moved into an advocacy role, which was really great and really rewarding, and that's how I met you.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that what you were looking for there?
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear the story, you know, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. So thank you for sharing that. You know, when we talked about this too, and I think still to this day, I do feel like mental health talks have kind of opened up the pandemic. I say that in a lot of the interviews has kind of really blew the lid off of that. I still think, you know, we can do more work, more could be done. But with this realm of maternal mental health, why do you think there's such a stigma with, you know, women and moms that don't really feel comfortable coming forward and talking about that until maybe they hear from other moms, you know, just everyday working moms or whatever the case may be, and then saying, oh, well, you went through it. That's for me what helped me. I saw other moms just kind of staring there like, what just happened to my life? And, you know, once they were comfortable to share, I was like, this is a huge deal. We got to talk about this, you know, hence why we did the special. But why do you think there's such that stigma around it? I feel like it's gotten a lot better. But, you know, I still feel like there's moms out there, new moms that don't know what they're experiencing and are afraid to, you know, put a label on that.
You know, I think a couple things. I think, one, you know, most women on this planet have given birth, you know, and everybody else seems to be doing it, you know, and so for you to be doing it and really struggling when on the outside, you know, everybody else is making it to the store. Everybody else looks like they've brushed their hair.
Yeah.
Everybody else has or, you know, on social media appears to have a clean house and happy kids who are eating only organic and doing all the right activities and and so I think there's just there's a shame there that we, based on what we see, since we don't tend to live in quite as close community as we used to, we're not privy to most people's inner lives and to their, you know, what their home looks like on a daily basis. And so maybe we just kind of make a lot of assumptions about how things look based on their social media, which is the highlight reel.
Exactly. You cannot base off of that at all.
And so I think that, at least for me, and then a lot of the women that I've talked to and worked with, they feel like they're the only ones. And when you feel so alone in that, you know, you're pretty hesitant to advertise that. I think, additionally, a lot of moms, in my own experience, and again, a lot of the moms that I've talked with over the past decade, also don't really know what postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety are. I think that a lot of the moms that I talk to have thought that, well, this constant worry, this constant anxiety, this constant down on myself, that's just what motherhood is, and this is what I chose for myself, and so I just got to deal with this. And like you were saying, it wasn't really until I had just had my second, and I had gone to one of the Parenting with Providence groups, and this lovely woman, Kara, who was leading it, was just talking about, you know, she was being her usual bubbly self, and she was talking about her kids, and she's got this whole passel of kids, and she's just lovely, and we all just really looked up to her. And then kind of like offhandedly, she was like, yeah, but after my fourth, I had this crazy postpartum anxiety, and I was doing this, and I was feeling this, and so I went, and And we were all just
like, what?
wait,
yeah.
what? You?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wait, I'm dealing with that. That's what it feels like. That's holy,
Yeah.
beep, 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 bad word, bad word. And so I remember the girl sitting next to me, we both just kind of looked at each other like, oh, did you hear that?
Yeah.
And then that was kind of a turning point for me. And then, you go home and you Google stuff, because I was not Googling, why do I feel like such a mom? Such a poo-poo mom.
Yeah. No, it's keeping it real. It's real. It's real life.
But, when I did go home and start Googling stuff, there's a lot of information out there about it. And I was like, oh, dang, this is a thing.
Yeah, it's
this
not,
is a real thing.
They, the baby blues, like, it's like, oh, you might have the baby blues, but, and it's lasting and you're just feeling kind of like different. You know your body best and your mind and your emotions. Like, okay, for me, I was like, something's just not tracking here. And so had to go. I didn't want to keep feeling that way. But yeah, the more you talk about it, I was finding so many other moms in groups, which breastfeeding for me was a struggle. We did it. I got to go. I did 7 months with her, and I'm grateful for that. But oh man,
that's amazing.
Getting to that point, I was in tears. So you started the La Leche League here in Anchorage. Talk a little bit about that experience, because you said you struggled too.
Yeah, I really did.
With all three, or just
all three?
All three.
A different thing every time. So with my first. Breastfeeding to me, once it started out going okay, and I loved it.
Yeah,
I was not expecting to.
Same.
I was pretty hesitant about being a mother, hence waiting until I was 34. And then I found breastfeeding, and I was, not only did I use my body to make this baby, but now I'm using it to feed this baby, and it's lovely, and this baby is so cute, and I get to hold it all the time. Oh my gosh, I just thought it was the greatest thing, and it was fascinating the more I learned about lactation. And about how milk and breasts and lactation as a whole works. And then I, started having problems, kind of about that. Well, I had, a lot of, like, the cracking and bleeding up front.
Same. Just not latched good. I'm like, what is a latch?
Right.
You mean they have to latch on a specific way?
Right. There is so much misinformation out there. Yeah. And I was like, oh, cracked and bleeding nipples, from what I hear, that's totally normal. It's not. Yeah. It's totally fixable, though. Yeah. Anyways, bigger problems started happening later on. He started not gaining weight super well. And so I started, this is when I was living outside of Boston, I started attending La Leche League meetings in Providence, Rhode Island. And it was just a wonderful group of women who were incredibly supportive and were able to normalize things that were normal and be like, oh, hey, that's not exactly normal.
Yeah.
So-and-so dealt with this. You can go talk to her. And then I'd go talk to her, and she'd tell me something that would, help tremendously. They were able to get me connected with some lactation consultants, and, we were able to do fine
They're
eventually.
Lovely, lactation consultants.
Lactation consultants are a good
lovely.
Crew.
Yes, they
good
are.
Crew. I was there, and then we moved here right after my first son turned 2. I became a leader. They were like, hey, you should also be a leader when I was down there. So I did, and then I got up here, and I was pretty pregnant with my second one, and we did not have, there was a small La Leche League group in Eagle River, but there wasn't anything in Anchorage, and so I wanted to start that up, but I waited until I had my baby, and then kind of coordinated with the lactation consultants at Providence, and they were like, hey, this is a good idea. Why don't you come and use one of our, our maternity education room? So we started having meetings there, and they had great attendance, and we started a Facebook page.
Which has grown.
It's got like over 3,000 moms on it. And then we expanded to J-Bear. There's no longer a chapter there anymore, but we had Eagle River. There's a chapter in Palmer, Wasilla.
Okay.
And so we changed the whole group to La Leche League of Anchorage. I mean, I'm Alaska,
Anchorage. Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, I've been doing this for 6, 7, 8 years. I really absolutely love this. I think I'm just going to go for my IBCLC. And so then I did that.
I mean, just your journey is just one thing to the next. And then you also spent, it says, 6 years on the board of Postpartum Support International. Of course, that's a chapter locally. Well, there's local chapters to advocate for that, the PSI, which is another great resource. What do you get out of all this advocacy and just sharing your story? And now you're also in nursing school and going to become an RN. I like to think that helped lead your path to go to nursing school.
Yes, for sure, for sure. What do I get out of it? In the beginning, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not a dummy. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'm also not an idiot.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that this was so common here in Alaska, like crazy common, and just, as well as nationally and globally. And if I didn't know that, there's probably other people who didn't know that. And, I'm a pretty verbal person. Like to interact with people a lot. And I thought, wow, this could be something that could help people in my community. So it felt really nice to do that. And I got connected with the National Coalition for Maternal Mental Health after we did our thing there that you did for us. And, I gained a lot of understanding because I know my own experience and I know a lot of women who had very similar experiences, but experiences with, postpartum and maternal mental health, there's a very broad spectrum of what they look like.
Yes.
Very broad spectrum.
We even hit in the special we did the depression, anxiety, psychosis, where it can go up the ladder and
sure can.
The outcomes are devastating at times, but to shed light on maternal mental health. And what would you want to say to women, in Alaska, or whoever is listening to this podcast, but mainly here, statewide? We're getting ready to come into, fall, winter. We're losing our daylight. This is kind of a tough time. I had my daughter in September, and I'll never forget when we got discharged from the hospital. It was a cool fall day, but it was just rainy and drizzly, and that was a huge factor when I just looked at her and I lost it. It was like, ooh, what do you want to say to those moms that are going to be kind of coming into that season if they're pregnant now?
Yeah, good question. There are some strategies that we know can help tremendously. And some of them are specific to up here because the darkness up here and the isolation that comes with living in such a cold and oftentimes icy environment, like you're gonna go walk out out to your car with your 20-pound car seat and it's just a sheet of ice outside. No. So those are two very specific things that we have to monitor and watch out for up here. Sleep can help a lot. And, there's only so many hours in a day, and you got to spend a lot of those feeding your infant, however you're feeding. You got to spend, you have to eat, and you have to take care of your own bodily functions. Yeah. And then if you've got other kids, you got to take care of their needs as well. And so, you're feeding throughout the night if you've got a newborn as well. And so there's not a lot of time for sleep if you want to do pretty much anything else. Like if you want to have a moderately okay looking house, well, no. There's absolutely no time for that. If you want to do anything else other than DoorDash food for your family or make the bare minimum food for yourself, sleep is a real challenge there. But it's okay for your house to look like not great, not Instagram ready. If you gotta pull out a credit card and DoorDash a bunch of meals because there is simply no time for food prep, then that's okay too. I think it's important for moms to remember that these first, in my opinion, 4 months, you are really in survival mode. And whatever you gotta do to get by is okay. If that's have your kids watch more TV than your older kids watch more TV or have more screen time than you would like them to. Okay, well, for now, in this period, in this season, that's fine. You can get back to your lofty goals, in a couple months. You can find your new normal then when everybody's got their feet underneath them. But, instead of doing a load of dishes or
Go sleep.
just lay down
and sleep when the baby sleeps.
Sleep when the baby, like if your baby is asleep,
Yep.
and you have other kids and they are supervised or taken care of, or they're sleeping too, just go to sleep.
Yeah.
Do not clean your house.
Yeah.
Do not do anything else.
It's great advice. You might start off wanting to try that and picking it, and then you'll realize really quickly, like, I need to do me.
Yeah.
Talk about spousal support, partner support when, families are going through this transition and this time.
So, yeah, because that's a huge part. They're linchpins, right?
Yeah.
And not everybody has a partner. But for those that do, education is key. Because not a lot of people remember, not a lot of partners remember what their mother's postpartum experience was like, because they're not even cognizant yet.
They were tiny.
And so we all just kind of assume, well, everybody has kids. Everybody does this. Why can't you? Why are you being such a whiny failure at this? So education is key for partners. And so one of the things, when I was teaching breastfeeding classes and when I was leading La Leche League meetings, one of the things that I really liked was incorporating that education piece, because it's so crucial. Otherwise, maybe you do just kind of look lazy or whiny or overly tired or overly crabby or rageful to somebody else. That education piece, unfortunately, the onus oftentimes lies on the depressed partner to do that.
Yeah.
Which is crummy. You should not have any more onuses placed on you than you already have.
You're already dealing with a lot, but
right?
Here's one more.
And so what I like to encourage is, just really open communication between partners when there is one partner experiencing a maternal mental health issue, most often the mom, but the dads can experience too. And just really, probably a hard conversation, but being brave enough and doing that and providing your partner with the education. I remember telling my husband, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. You're a smart guy. Google it.
Yeah. And, I would like to think if, for the partners out there listening, if the mom does bring up that conversation, take it seriously, listen.
Absolutely.
And it may not always come out in the most eloquent way,
mine sure didn't.
But when we interviewed your husband, during the special, and he was vulnerable because, men are just, they're the strong ones, the providers, they're kind of supposed to be put in that role, but that's a really vulnerable time for them too. And it was just, I was commending your husband for just kind of stepping up and sharing, because other men need to hear that too.
Yeah.
And his experience for you guys. And
I think especially maybe Alaskan men, because our numbers up here are way higher. It's 1 in 3, women up here in Alaska will experience some symptoms of postpartum depression or anxiety sometime within their first year. Nationally, that's 1 in 6, maybe 1 in 7.
Yeah.
And then we had the pandemic, and it went to reported like 1 in 2, but the real estimates were like 70 to 80% of all parents having given birth during the pandemic were experiencing some form of postpartum mental health issue. Alaskan parents, take special note. It requires a lot of vulnerability, which is really hard.
It is.
But always worth it.
Yeah, I would say once you just kind of get it out there and put your story out there, the feedback is like, people are like, thank you for sharing. I mean, that's the feedback that I got. I was, imagine me, I wake the state up and they see me as this bubbly, good morning person. And I am. I'm naturally an extrovert and love people, but it was tough to, to kind of have to put that out there, but I just had to put the brave face on. And once I did, I got emails from all over, and a lot of emails from, the partners saying, my wife is going through this.
Exactly.
This is what she's experiencing. Thank you. And so that just got the ball rolling, of how do we get involved more? How do we share those resources and things like that? One thing I know, too, to touch on, kind of specifically for moms, like maternal mental health is a little bit different than just going to find like a regular counselor.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that, of trying to find someone specifically for moms to kind of diagnose if they have this?
Yeah, good question. Because we don't treat it exactly the same way as we do, like a 48-year-old male who's coming in and reporting depression and anxiety. A lot of the modalities that are used are similar. You know, we use medication, we use therapy, we use a lot of support type stuff. And so, you know, we start with sleep. We start with practical support. Like, do you even have a partner? Do you have anybody come in? Do you got friends helping with meals? Do you know, are your other kids in daycare or childcare? Are they in school? You know, we start with practical things like that. Are there, are we in the depths of December? Is it pitch black outside all the time? Do we need to get you a happy light and teach you how to use that? What's your vitamin D like? That's also an important thing to check. It really is, especially up here. So there are all those things to talk about with any provider. You know, I would suggest that any woman who is experiencing anything like this in, you know, the first 4 years of their kid's life, because that's what really the postpartum time frame is, that they talk to their primary care provider about that. One of the reasons that I love Postpartum Support International so much is because, and especially our chapter that we have up here, which is led by amazing women, is that we have a primary focus on educating the providers and healthcare professionals in the area, because it is such a common thing up here, and it can be devastating to families, and providers and practitioners need to know about it, and they need to know what they can do, what's within their scope, and they need to know when to refer out, and they need to know who to refer out, and that the people that they're going to refer out have been trained to work with families in a postpartum setting, because it's not like, you know, you go in and you sit down and you know, you're like, oh, I'm experiencing what I think is postpartum depression or anxiety, and the therapist is like, okay, well, tell me about your childhood. You know?
It doesn't go there.
No. We focus on coping skills and strategies for making it through the day, and so in that sense, it differs a little bit. But we are very lucky here in Alaska, particularly in this Anchorage area, because PSI has had 2 major trainings up here now.
The last one, you guys had one recently, a couple months ago.
Where therapists, midwives, nurses, doctors, nurse practitioners, counselors, the whole spectrum, they are trained in, you know, counseling techniques, you know, all the latest research on what to do, how can we handle this, how can we help this mom. And I think that that's hugely important, and I really appreciate that PSI has done that, because we have a well-resourced community as far as that goes now.
And if any providers are listening now that want to get in touch, or they know someone who wants to get more of that additional training, they just reach out to PSI Alaska. Okay.
So what they can do is they can go to postpartum.net. That is the website for Postpartum Support International, and I mean, there's just an infinite number of links there, but there are links to the coordinators and the leaders for each state chapter.
Okay.
And so they can do that. We also have a Facebook page. There's an Instagram page. Just, you know, Google it.
Get connected, Now it's social
media. And there's PSI has all kinds of free online trainings that are self-paced. You don't have to, like, wait until a training comes to town. There's a lot of help and support out there and trainings.
So with nursing, where do you see yourself taking that? What do you want to do with being a nurse?
Yeah, you know, I think initially I thought maybe I wanted to be a nurse to kind of broaden my scope as a lactation consultant. And the more I've gotten into it, I'm interested in it all. I really don't know what I'll do. I mean, I'm moms and babies and lactation, and the postpartum period is always going to be forefront in my life and in my heart, and I hope in my work. But I'm open to, I don't know, hospice. I've already done one end of the spectrum. Why not do the other end? And then just, you know, general floor mid-surge nursing is also really important to me. You know, my family's aging. My husband and I were getting up there. My parents, aunts, and uncles are all super important to me. I want to be a resource to them. So what am I going to do? I have no idea. Is it going to be boobs and babies? Maybe. Is it going to be
boobs and babies?
old people? I have no idea.
Yeah, well, no, that's great. You're fine. You'll find where you'll land where you need to be. I have no doubt in that. Yeah. That's exciting. Congratulations. Well, I'd like to always give my guests the kind of final thought, final word. This can be anything that you would like to share, anything that we would want to touch on. Of course, for some of those links, we'll be sure to hyperlink that in our web content. But, Carrie, go ahead and share whatever you feel is on your heart, or to kind of wrap up about babies, moms, life, nursing, whatever you feel.
Oh, my goodness.
Is kind of, you would like to share. I'll give you the floor.
Oh, goodness.
No pressure.
Parenting is hard. Mm-hmm. It is so good, and it is so hard.
Yeah.
Maybe harder for some of us just because of our personalities, our backgrounds, or, our baseline mental health. But it's pretty hard. A lot easier when you have a partner who you can communicate with and talk with, and who believes and understands you when you say, hey, I'm struggling with this. But again, here I go back to PSI. Their tagline is, this is not your fault. You are not to blame. And with help, you will be well. With help, you will be well. And so I think, if nobody hears me say anything else at all, is that if we can get you some help and some support, you will be well again. Again, we've got a lot of resources here in Alaska. It looks different for everybody. It may just be getting you a little more sleep. It may be getting you some time for some self-care in your life. It may be medication. It may be therapy. It may be years of therapy. It may be incorporating some exercise. It may be doing a whole, who knows? It could be a combination of any of those things. But maternal mental health issues respond very well to treatment. Very, very well. And so there's hope. There is help out there. There is hope. And yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't have people, we don't have providers and nurses and healthcare people and therapists coming to the mom's house to check on her. And we don't have screening all the time, and we don't have a really big focus on the mom so much after that. It's unfortunate that we don't, and I hope that one day we do in our community, globally. But until we do, we have to talk about this, so when people hear about it and then maybe they experience it themselves, they can say, oh shoot, I remember that gal talked about that, and I remember her saying she got better. So we need to be open about it. If anybody out there has struggled with anything like this and has found their way through it, that is to be celebrated. That is a big deal. It is not anything to be ashamed about. Tell somebody, because you can save somebody's life. If I hadn't heard Carrie say that one day in that, parenting postpartum group, I truly shudder to think, well, I don't think I'd be here. I don't think I'd be here.
I just got goosebumps. You're so right. And we're two women that are living testament to that, it gets better. We both went through it in two different ways, but we're here to talk about it and hopefully pass that on to anyone listening. So some great advice. It does get better. Yep. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for coming on, being vulnerable again.
My pleasure.
And sharing your story. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Parenting in the Far North. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much.